Hello, folks. You're very welcome to the next installment in the series of videos about Michy's Endgame Technique book. I'm looking at Chapter 3, the Deuce Point game today. We have looked at the closeout, where we have made all our homeboard points and have an opponent's check out on the bar. We've looked at the ace point game, and you won't be surprised to hear that the deuce point game is a situation where our opponent has an anchor on our 2 point, and we're trying to bring our checkers safely in over them. To close out, just to kind of review what we were looking at, huge winning chances that just don't get hit and you're going to be fine. Ace point game, lesser winning chances because, as Michy said, even if you play absolutely perfectly, you're leaving about a 48% chance you're going to be hit, and there's a focus there on the long-term safety. The deuce point game, there's only a 30% chance you're going to be hit, so that you have higher winning chances. But if you look at the focus there, there's a complete pivot. So we're no longer interested in the mountain structures we were looking at with the ace point game and long-term safety. We're entirely focused on short-term safety, not leaving situations that will cause us problems if we get bad rolls in the next immediate roll. So I have to say, as Michy's chapters go, and Michy's books go, he's such a great writer for backgammon. He's such a great help to intermediate players like myself. This chapter was his most jumbled and unhelpful chapter that I've read so far. It's a mishmash. I said there's two. He talks about one fundamental rule, but then involves another, and has no less than 5 proverbs we're meant to learn, and the whole chapter is kind of a jumble of ideas mashed together that don't make it give it kind of a clear summary of what to do. Now I think I've got around this with a little solution that I'm going to talk to you at the end of this video, but it is probably the most unhelpful of his chapters, just because of the sheer amount of ideas and factors that he's bringing into play. So the 2 fundamental rules are straightforward. You'll know them from before, and the big one he talks about is clear from the rear, and no big surprise there. But he also talks later on, but mentions the idea of don't leave gaps either. When it comes to the proverbs, the 5 proverbs, I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go through them all for completeness sake, but I'm going to do them in a slightly different order than he does them, because I think there's a nice little neat way of remembering them. So I'm going to start with the numbers 1, 2, and 3. So for 1, the number 1, don't stack on the 1 point is the guide here. So in this situation here, we have 5-2 to play. Clearing from the rear, I think we'd naturally move them 2 forward from the 6. But if you look, we've now got an extra check on the 1 point. And for Michy says, in this situation, that's going to leave you problems. So he says, don't stack from the 1 point. Instead, going back to this, bear one off from the 5 and move it forward from the 5 as well. You aren't stacking on the 1 point there, and that's the first of the proverbs. The second proverb, so we're looking at the number 2 now, and when we come to the number 2, we use a 2. If we roll a 2, we use it to clear a point. So he gives a situation here where we roll a 6-2. Obviously the 6 is forced, it has to come off. What do we do with the 2? There's a couple of candidate options here, but the correct one is to help get ready to clear that 6 point by moving the 2 forward. And now with the number 3, looking at the number 3, the proverb to do with the number 3 is ensure you have a spare on the 3 point when clearing the 6 point. So when you clear the 6 point, going back to that original situation, and we talked about making that move. We've cleared the 6 point, but we don't have a spare on the 3. Not only have we stacked up the 1 point, we don't have a spare on the 3, so that's not a good situation for us. So it's all the more reason for when we did the correct move. I said this is the example I used a minute ago, and it's an example I'm going to come back to later on in the video as well. Again, it's better because we have it with the 3 point with a spare in it now. So when we clear the 6 point, we have that spare that he says is very important. He doesn't give a justification for this, but just mathematically, when it happens, it happens. That if you get into more problems when you don't have a spare in the 3 point after you've cleared the 6 point. So I think that's a handy way to remember. The numbers 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is don't get stuck in the 1 point. 2 is use the 2 to clear a point, and 3 is have a spare in the 3 point when clearing the 6. The fourth proverb is bear off 2 checkers, and he says that bearing off 2 checkers is better than bearing off 1 checker. I think that's kind of obvious, but he gives an example of it here, where in this situation where we have the 4 either comes off our 4 point or our 5 point. His suggestion is take it off the 4 point. What do you do with the 1? You could move one of those checkers on the 6 point, 5 point, or 4 point. You can move one of them forward, but the correct move, just take another checker off. 2 checkers off is better than 1. Proverb 5 is to count the numbers that you could roll that will leave blots next turn. And if you're not sure about this, just refer you back to the last video I did in the Michy Endgame section, which gives you kind of a little process for doing this. But I think this is of fundamental importance when you're coming to bear things off. When you get beyond the ace point, when you get the 2 point and higher, we're looking at, short-term safety. What can we roll that means in the next go we have no risky rolls at all? And sometimes you have to leave risky rolls. So what can we do to minimize our risk? So if you take this example here with the 6-1, again, the 6 is forced. It has to come off. What do you do with the 1? Do you take 1 off maybe here? If you do that, you find a situation that it leaves 7 bad numbers. So let's just go back and see if there's anything else we could do. Well, we could move 1 forward in the 5. If we do this, that leaves 3 bad numbers. And so this leads to Michy's strategy that I mentioned in the last video about counting numbers. He said generally that if you find play A has 4 fewer bad numbers than play B, you should always choose play A. And the corollary of that is if the difference in bad numbers is less than 4, it's not crucial and the other factors take a major role. So that's Michy's strategy. And I'm not going to give you Alan's strategy because for me it just makes this jumbled, laborious chapter so much more straightforward. So I'm calling this Alan's much better strategy. I don't claim to be as good a player, as good a teacher as Michy, but in this instance, there's just a handy rule of thumb I think we can use, and it's this. Despite all the proverbs and the fundamental rules, and clear from the rear is important, the play that has the least bad numbers is nearly always the best. And I've gone through so many positions to try and see, am I wrong about this? And it always comes out as it's either the best or nearly the best. It's never going to be very far wrong. So my strategy and the notes I've kind of made for myself after kind of studying this chapter is this: clear from the rear, and the outcome that gives the least bad rolls is never going to be very wrong and is nearly always right. So, in fairness to Michy, he does say this. He says, when he summarizes the 2 different games, he says, ace point game, you try to make a mountain structure. The deuce point game, count how many bad rolls will leave a shot. That this sort of diagram is in his book. But I wanted to give you the 5 proverbs because the study group I'm in, we're kind of looking at the different books, and I feel I owe it to the group to kind of share the 5 proverbs. But it's that one at the bottom that I'm now going to make flash white and yellow that matters. You can ignore the other 4. I'm going to ignore the other 4. Just stick with that. Count the numbers that leave the blocks next turn, and go for the lowest option. That will get you either right or very nearly right, and not particularly ever badly wrong. So in the example I gave with the 6 and the 2, we had rolled one. The 6 had come off naturally, and we said the correct situation is to use the 2 to prepare to clear the point. If you look at that situation, that leaves I think it's a 6-4 is going to leave a shot. 6 double 6s, double 5s leaves a shot. I think there's 5 bad shots there. Had we rolled this situation, well, 6-5 leaves a shot. Double 6s, double 5s, and double 4s leave a shot. So there's 4 bad shots. We've done it the correct way. 5 bad shots, 5 bad rolls the next go if we leave it this time. So without a doubt, the best roll is also the one that leaves the least bad rolls the next turn. And as you see it there, this one only leaves 4 bad rolls. The other one left 5. At the very end of the chapter, Michy gives an interesting quite a challenging position here when you roll a double fours. There's only kind of really two things you can do. You can either take four off um, and leave a gap there, or you can take one off the four and take three, move three from the five forward, and have a situation where you've got a gap slightly further away. And I would have instinctively thought the further away from the ace point the gap is, the better. But in this situation, if you look at it, we've stacked the 1 point, which Michy doesn't like, and the other option, taking the four off the four, we've got more checkers off in the first place. But look at this. Let's count bad rolls. Alan's much better strategy, as I call it. Well, if you look at it this way, we've taken them off this position as we have it. Double sixes will leave a problem. Double fives will leave a problem. So we've got two bad rolls next. If you look at doing it this way, well, double sixes leave a problem, but double fives don't leave a problem. So it's only one bad roll. So Michy would say that this is the better position because you've taken four off, because you haven't sacked the 1 point. Alan would say this is the better position because it leaves fewest bad rolls in the next round compared to that. And indeed, it is a situation where the four off is much the best move. So I was kind of quite smug with myself, saying, well, Alan's strategy just works no matter what, the theory comes into it. Looking at that idea about taking two off being better than one, well, when we took the two off, you had a situation where I don't think there's any, that's a perfect position, a zero position, there's nothing you have a problem with. But if we'd moved any other checker there, we'd have left a shot. So again, there was always a bad roll in it. It's not foolproof. And this example that we've used already twice in this video is an example where Alan's rule is wrong. So Alan would say clear from the rear, and if we do it that way, we've left a zero position. There are no rolls we can make in the next move that leave leave a blot. The correct move, if you remember, was this. Now that is a problem because that leaves 6-4s. There's two 6-4s out of 36. We'll leave shots the next go. But compared to, I said, the zero position I've left. But I went through it on XG and went through all these positions in XG just to kind of test myself. And this was the biggest error I could find, and it's a 0.037 of an error, 37 millipoints of an error. And to be quite honest, there's so much to learn in backgammon. There's so many different facets of the game that if I can remember the deuce point as count that needs a roll that leaves the fewest bad shots next go and clear from the rear, if I can learn the 3 point is that, and I have to give a 37 millipoint error occasionally, I think that's good value for money. And indeed, Michy has sort of codded us here a little bit because that was the position he used. In nearly every other position in this chapter, Black's checkers are much further advanced. And when they put them in further advanced, the error is even slighter. It was a 5 millipoint. It's not even an error. It's a very minor disagreement. And I put in loads and loads of different positions. And the one I showed, the one he starts with first, gives the biggest error. And as I said, 37 millipoint. Most of them were not errors to do Alan's strategy of clear from the rear and leave the situation that leaves the fewest bad rolls. One position I put in, and I can't for the life of me reconstruct it. I screenshotted the XG analysis rather than the position itself. I was able to get it that there was no error, no worst position. Doing my approach wasn't worse at all. But I just thought I'd show you that was a situation where my way wasn't foolproof. It just gave you an example. So finally, let's using either Michy's techniques, all the proverbs, or just mine, a test yourself question. You can pause the video. How would you play 2-1? And unpausing it, both Michy and myself would say you clear from the rear. And again, I like it because that's a zero position. Just no bad shots the next roll. Michy used that as an example for clearing from the rear. So that's it for the chapter 3, the deuce point game. As said, it's definitely, there's a lot to it in terms of the different proverbs, but I think I'm going to certainly simplify it into just count the bad rolls and clear from the rear and take the position with the least bad rolls next go. And I said, very occasionally you'll be wrong, but you won't be so far wrong that it's worth worrying about. There's far more, like, I want to get onto cubing strategy and not be worrying about that. about that. Right, folks, coming up next week, I hope, is a chapter on the 3-point game.